What is going on, degenerates? It's your boy Clint from the Die Hard MMA podcast, and this is the undefeated post-weigh-in show for UFC 274, your favorite betting show of the week, where no things I say on this show are ever counted as factually wrong. There are only truths for you here on the Undefeated show. We've never lost a bet on this Friday episode. Y'all know how it goes. Hey, we have a very, very special show for you. Not only is UFC 274 absolute chaos right now with everything going on, we got lots to talk about on the scale, but I have a special guest for you. We are bringing in none other than the head odds maker himself over from Superbook Sports, the man that you may know from many betting shows in Vegas, and of course, the Kelly and Murray podcast, John Murray himself. What's going on, John? How you doing today?
How's it going? A little hectic out here, honestly. Before I jumped on with you, we were moving the price by 10 cents on the title fights, or the non-title fight, I should say tomorrow. The main event, we'll call it.
Yeah, we got to refer to it as the main event now because there's only half a belt on the line.
Absolutely shocking. And I just saw Brett Okamoto tweeted, official per the UFC, title is vacant. Justin can win. Charles cannot. I can't believe it because Do Bronx has just been in unbelievable form now for years. Just, mowing down what is the best division in MMA. I know he never had to fight Khabib, but this is the best division in the UFC, and he's been killing everybody, and now he misses weight in a title fight. I'm stunned.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, like you said, the kid just keeps proving everybody wrong, getting better, slicing through top contenders. And to miss weight by a half pound, I mean, we'll talk about it. We'll get there. We'll go all into that one. So absolute insanity for all of us this morning. And the downside of being a sports betting podcaster, a guy that probably was going to jump on Justin Gaethje, it's a little bummer the line moved right before the show because now I'm not going to get the same price.
Well, we do generally move if a guy looks terrible at the weigh-ins. And I've seen guys, miss weight by a lot more than half a pound. I'm sure you can recall some moments like that in the past. But if a guy just looks awful on the scales, we'll make a small adjustment to the price. This time, we only moved it by 10 cents. But it really just kind of shows you where the guy's head's at.
Absolutely.
And it's a little shocking again. I know I just said it, but this is such a big fight. This is one of the biggest UFC fights of the whole year.
It's crazy.
Camp to miss weight is just stunning. We made a small adjustment. We did see some sharp guys.
That's what John's going to do for us. He's going to, chat through the fights. We'll talk through the card like we always do. I'll let you know what we saw with these fighters on the scales. And John is either going to give his opinion if there's nothing behind the counter, but if he's got to look for us as far as sharp action, interesting line movements or whatever, that's what he's going to do for us today. So everybody, do us a favor. Smash the like button here. Subscribe to Pub Sports if you haven't already. And of course, if you're in one of the states where we're available, sign up and play at Superbook Sports. The first fight on the card was Journey Newsome taking on Fernie Garcia. Both men came in at 135.5, and Journey Newsome was all business today. Dude gave a big flex, intense on the scales. He looks like he's in great shape. Fernie Garcia, a bit awkward. It's his first time UFC debut. We see some jitters, nothing super surprising there. But the dude is jacked. He is in absolutely solid shape. Looking over at the line, what we've got right now is Fernie Garcia minus 150, Journey Newsome plus 130. One thing I like to do, John, is the what I call the Dana White Contender Series fade. I like betting against these guys that are making their debut off the Contender Series just because of that level jump. They're not quite ready to jump into the UFC, and it's eye-opening for some of these guys, especially if it's someone who's had kind of a 50-50 run in the organization. They fought at this level. They've proven they belong, but can't quite, get up into the challenger circle yet. Those seem to be the guys that pull off the upset. I've been looking at Journey Newsome all week, and I'm a little tempted on that plus 130. What do you think of this fight, and is there anything interesting that we should know about?
Well, we did have a very respected player of ours bet Fernie Garcia maybe 30 minutes ago during the weigh-in. So he laid minus 135, and you see how much we respect that play. We went all the way to minus 150. As you mentioned, we moved it by 15 cents. So it's a pretty respected play on that fight. I don't have an opinion personally. I know what you're saying about the Dana White Contender Series. I think that angle makes sense, but in this case, I got to go with the respected money. That's why we moved our price.
Hey, if the sports books are paying attention to this guy, then I probably should too.
Yeah, no, these are good. We got some very sharp players that bet MMA, and they can really move the market, and they win pretty consistently. Doesn't mean they win every time like you do. Sure. Out of the top of the show, but our guys, they hit and miss. But this guy, he's got a track record of success, so we got to respect him.
I like it. If nothing else, penny saved is penny earned in gambling, right? So maybe I just pass on that one for
avoiding
this week.
Avoiding a loser is even better than winning in a lot of ways.
In some cases,
especially
very much.
Paying the price this time wouldn't matter, but if you're laying a big price, it's much better.
Oh, there's nothing worse than laying down the hammer on like a minus 175 and having that go bust on you.
I've done it. I've laid bigger prices than that. Unfortunately, had them go bust. That's the fight game. It happens.
Yep. That's what I always tell people, John, that, in other sports, we're talking like I use baseball as an example. If it's bottom of the ninth and your team's down by 5, and you hit a 3-run homer, you're still down by 2. Like that home run, great. That's great. But you're still not there yet. In MMA, if you hit a home run, it's over.
It's over. That's why I don't really bet on the heavyweight fights. Very rarely will I get involved in the heavyweight fights because you never know. There can be just one fluke shot at guys of that size that can end the fight or at least change the fight.
Absolutely. And that's what makes the sport so fun to watch and bet because you just never know what's going to happen. Next fight up, we got Lupita Gudinez taking on Ariane Carnelossi. Lupita came in at 115 on the dot. Carnelossi needed that extra half pound, 115 and a half. Lupita looked solid. She gave a good, strong flex, looked good. No issues from her. We've seen her at this weight class. Not really any concerns there. Carnelossi is massive. She is absolutely jacked. I'm convinced that she's bigger than Michael Chandler is. She is a mountain of muscle. This is a spot where we've got Lupita Gudinez, a minus 180 favorite, plus 160 on Ariane Carnelossi. That name is a tongue twister. I like Gudinez here, and I'm tempted to play her at this point. She's at that perfect little number for a parlay if you're looking for a 2-teamer or something like that in MMA. Honestly, John, I think this fight is going to come down to activity and gas. And I know Carnelossi is the bigger hitter. I know that if a finish comes, it's probably on her side of things, but she does tend to slow down in her fights, and Lupita never stops. I just feel like we're probably headed to a decision, and I'm expecting 30-27 or 29-28 for Lupita Gudinez here. What do you think?
Well, the betting market expects it to go to a decision, right? You can always look at the round prop. In this case, 2.5 over minus 265 on a 3-round fight. So, of course, the betting markets are expecting this thing to go 15 minutes, go to a decision. Steam on Gudinez. She's moved from minus 145 to minus 170 at the Superbook. So the way that the fight is priced seems to point to what you're saying. A Gudinez decision victory would be the most normal or would be the most likely outcome based on the betting markets.
Yeah, and I think you can get even money if you want to play that prop straight up by itself, not worry about a parlay or anything like that. I always worry about that because you just never know. If she gasses her out and chokes her out in the 3rd round and you lose your decision prop bet.
Be careful doing stuff like that. You get a little too creative.
Yeah.
I remember I was at Mayweather Ricky Hatton about 1 million years ago, and I had a bet on Mayweather by decision, and he knocked him out, and I was so upset. You got to be careful with that sort of thing.
Absolutely, and Mayweather doesn't knock anybody out. That's got to burn.
Well, that was young John Murray's thought process. I was a very young man back then.
I hear you.
Probably couldn't afford to lose whatever it was I bet. I have no idea. I remember being.
Man, I'm one of those. I got to learn the lessons in sports betting the hard way, man. I'm right there.
Oh, we all do.
All right. Next fight up, Clayton Rodriguez taking on CJ Vergara. Rodriguez came in at 125.5. Vergara made 126. Rodriguez was absolutely shredded on the scales today. Dude is in crazy good shape. It was kind of funny because he posed like 3 different times before the call, and he kept messing up the scale, so the guy made him like hold still before he read it off. CJ Vergara pounded his chest, looked good. He is amped up. Hometown kid coming in here. He's been repping, Phoenix Suns and stuff like that on his Instagram all week. Rodriguez is a minus 340 favorite. CJ Vergara is a plus 280 underdog. And, John, this is another spot. It's the Contender Series fade for me. This is a dog or pass spot. Even though Rodriguez looks like he's the goods, he looks like he's legit, the 0-1 CJ, who showed some serious heart against Ode Osborne, down 2 rounds, digging deep in that 3rd, looked like he was willing to go out on his shield to get the win if he had to. He's going to come and bring it in this fight. He's the kind of fighter that I like to back as an underdog because he will fight for your money. It's one of those spots where we got to be right. Like 1 out of every 3 or 4 shots you take it plus 280. So that's kind of the way I'm looking here. But Rodriguez looked damn good. So I'm not chasing anybody or running anybody over to get to the window.
Very little action on this fight right now. We have moved the price up a little bit from 265 to 340, but that's just us moving with the betting markets. I haven't really seen too much of the Superbook on that fight. What you'll get in a fight like that, it's early in the card, and people don't know too much about the two fighters. So what are they going to do? They're going to take the favorite, and they're going to throw them in their parlays. That'll be most of the action you get on that fight. So we'll need Vergara in that fight, but I certainly don't expect it to be a big decision for us. It'll just be an early parlay option for a lot of bettors that like to lay the chalk.
Okay, I like it. Moving on, we've got Tracy Cortez taking on Melissa Gatto. Cortez made 125.5. Gatto 125 on the dot. Tracy Cortez looked good, no issues. She's had some weight troubles in the past, so good to see that she got through that fight ready here in Arizona. Probably had something to say about that matter. They've always got their fighters ready to go. You've got Gatto, big smile and flex. This girl is jacked, John. Gatto is in crazy good shape, always looking good on the scales. This was the one bet on the card that really jumped off the page at me earlier in the week. I got Melissa Gatto at plus 155. That number's down to plus 125, plus 120 in some spots. You can get Cortez at minus 145 right now. I think the dog has all the ways to win except for the pure wrestling. That's the one thing that Tracy Cortez is just going to lay on top of her and look to, absolutely maul her and shut her down. The problem is Gatto's got some serious BJJ. She showed some good sweeps, some good submission attacks. If it's on the feet, I don't think Cortez has anything for her. I feel like this is a live dog in this spot, and I'm pretty happy beating the line move the way I did.
Well, you got a great price. We're down at plus 120 right now on Gatto, down from plus 140 earlier in the week. Most of the tickets are on Gatto. I'm not saying we had a lot of money on that fight, but so far the market seems to like her, and that's why you see the price move down. I don't expect it to be a big decision, but if the fight started right now, we would be rooting for Tracy Cortez, be rooting against you. Seems like a bad position to be in.
I don't know. I always like to be on the side of the book, John. I'll be honest. I get a little nervous when people are on my side. I'm kind of a contrarian guy.
people need to realize that MMA is just like the NFL. It's just like college football in this sense. The majority of the money we're going to take on these fights is going to come in tomorrow. The sharp guys play it early. The public will all come in tomorrow. The public will come in as the fighters are walking to the cage. That's how public bettors bet. The sharper players, they make their moves earlier in the week.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm going to be the same way, John. I'm going to be at the fights tomorrow night with my phone in my hand, and I'm sure on the fights I don't have any action on, the beer money's going to be tossed in right as they're walking to the cage.
I may have done that at a UFC events at MGM Grand and T-Mobile a few times over the last 15 years. I'd say more than a few times.
It's hard not to, man. It's so fun, and just having just a little extra sprinkle on it makes it that much better.
I have to agree, yes.
All right. Next up, we've got Andre Fialho taking on Cameron VanCamp. Fialho made 170.5. VanCamp 170 on the dot. Fialho, huge flex. This guy is absolutely massive on the scales today. Gave a slight waiver, which is something I look for, that lack of balance when they get up there. Seems like he may have had a tough cut. Short turnaround for him, so it's kind of to be expected. VanCamp, absolutely unenthusiastic body language up there. No real issues, but for a guy making his UFC debut, just seemed kind of nonplussed by the whole thing. This is a spot where I can't go against favorite. I've been telling people that Fialho is the goods his last couple fights, even though he's come up short a few times. Showed it in his last fight, though, that big KO power. He's getting better. He's learning how to cut the cage off. VanCamp is a guy that really kind of relies on his opponent and scrambles, locks up submissions, but he's more than willing to throw. That's the one thing you can't do against Andre Fialho. The 100 on Fialho seems fine to me. He's a guy that I would look at parlaying if you're going to do parses, maybe the KO prop. Anything on this one, John?
Yeah, actually, we had a respected player laid $4 on Fialho, which is a little surprising. You don't really get your sharp MMA bettors doing straight bets like that, or anyone making big straight bets like that on the huge favorites. They laid $4. We went to $4.50 on Fialho. I think what you said is spot on, though. He's going to be in a lot of parlays. I think he is the biggest favorite card, if I have that correct. So expect him to be thrown into a lot of parlay bets tomorrow and today and tomorrow, I should say. All
right, sounds good. Blagoy Ivanov taking on Marcos Rogerio de Lima coming up here. Blagoy came in at 253.5. Marcos de Lima 258.5. These are some big boys, John. Classic Blagoy. He's never the most impressive physically looking, so I can't really comment too much on that. Same thing with Marcos de Lima. He's a guy that has just kind of climbed his way up the scales over the course of his career. These guys are thrown down, and I'm looking forward to it. This is going to be a fun fight. De Lima always brings the heat, those heavy leg kicks, kind of goes for broker. He's plus 130 as the underdog. Ivanov is the minus 150 for it. And honestly, John, I'm a little tempted by that Blagoy Ivanov submission prop. I think they got it at plus 550 right now, and that's kind of the way we see Marcos de Lima lose. The guy, not to be disrespectful, but he kind of takes his ball and goes home sometimes. When he doesn't get you out of there in that first round, he just kind of folds up. And Ivanov is a guy that manages to get about one takedown per fight. And if he gets a takedown on De Lima, especially if it's in the second round, I don't think De Lima gets back up, if I'm being completely honest. On the feet, he's probably got better Muay Thai. However, we have seen Blagoy get hit by everything, including Rick Lewis, and he just doesn't go down. He's insanely durable. So I think the longer this fight goes, the more the favorite makes sense. You said you tend to avoid the heavyweight fights, but I do think this is kind of a favorite or pass spot. What about you?
I wouldn't get involved, but I can tell you that the bettors they're all involved on Ivanov. Every ticket we've written on this fight is on Blagoy Ivanov, including a very respected player. Played 50 today. We went to 65. You mentioned the price, minus 150, plus 130. That was the case until very recently. We're now at 65.45 on Ivanov. Looks like we're going to need De Lima in that fight. The heavyweights are tough, though, man. The one punch changes the whole fight. I won't be betting, but the book taking a lot of bets on Ivanov.
Okay. All right. I'm glad to hear I'm on the same side as the sharp better. We'll see if I get there, though. Minus 165. The price is starting to sound a little steep for heavyweight boys. Sure. Next up, Brandon. Oh, I'm sorry, John. I didn't mean to cut you off. What was that?
No, I said I agree. It's always
okay.
always a little scary laying those big prices, unless it's Curtis Blades, because he doesn't do anything stupid. He just goes in and gets it done for you.
You know exactly what you're with Curtis Blades every fight. I love it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't mind.
Yeah, no, he's a good chalk piece for sure. Brandon Royval taking on Matt Schnell up next. Both guys came in at 125.5. Brandon Royval giving attitude and flexing on people early. I love this guy. They call him Raw Dog. He's one of my favorite up-and-coming fighters. He just brings the action every single time. Matt Schnell looked okay, a bit sucked out, but honestly, it's the best weigh-in we've seen from him in years. He's 3 canceled fights in a row because of troubles on the scales, whether it's him or his opponents. It's been really frustrating for Matt Schnell on fight day for the last year or so. This is a spot where, once again, I'm going to side with the books. Brandon Royval minus 250. Matt Schnell is a plus 210 underdog. I do think that Matt Schnell is the more technical fighter of the two, but Royval just causes chaos, John, and we have seen Matt Schnell fade in those chaotic situations. If he can't keep you right where he wants you, use his jab, use his footwork, you force him to scramble and think quick, cut. I think Brandon Royval is coming in hot for this fight, and I do expect him to get a finish.
Schnell is just a gatekeeper fighter. We've seen guys like this for years and years in the UFC. Royval is the up-and-comer, laying minus 250. That's what we've had the price at the whole time. Very little action on this fight so far, but you're going to see Royval thrown into a lot of parlays, and I think he's going to get it done tomorrow. I think he's a guy that probably will continue some parlays that move into the main card.
Yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling too. And honestly, John, I've made a couple parlays and not locked them in this week. Like, I've been a little hesitant. I want to wait and see what these guys look like on the scale. Val is one of these guys that I'm like, the price, it's just a little too high for me. And I think that's probably why there's not a ton of action. Because if we're looking at straight up how good these fighters are, it's one of those spots where I think Matt Schnell is not going to win this fight. I think Royval is going to win this fight. But it's all about price in sports betting, and the minus 250 seems like just a little more than I want to pay.
Well, that's sports betting is the great equalizer. So even if you have somebody that's so much better than their opponent, you can price it correctly. I mean, we've seen boxing where we have the price at minus 5,000 because the boxing does we'll call it poor job of matching up opponents.
I'm glad we don't see too many of those numbers in MMA. It's only when
very rarely we had it last. Chase Sherman was just a massive dog last Saturday, but it's very unusual. Boxing is really the sport that's very guilty of that. And usually the boxing aren't even priced correctly. They should be favored by even more than they are, but everybody bets the dogs. But boxing just has terrible matchmaking.
There's value on minus 2,000 favorite in boxing.
Oh, there is. Guys they're not going to lose. I mean, like Shakur Stevenson last Saturday was like minus 700. That was a good bet. He was never going to lose that fight.
That kind of stuff's insane to me.
Oscar Valdez has no business being in the ring with Shakur Stevenson. So, I mean, if you can afford to lay 600 and wait 45 minutes, you're going to win.
Yeah. Those, man, it's the bridge jumper price tags that we see come like NFL season where somebody lays that kind of price tag and then loses by a few.
I wouldn't do it in a baseball game, but you can get away with it in boxing. It's about the only time I've
exactly. That's the key right there. I think you're right. I don't know enough about boxing to get involved in that, but it does seem to go that way for sure. Next fight up, we got Macy Chason taking on Norma Dumont. Chason 145.5. Norma Dumont missed weight 165.5. Our first weight miss to talk about today. Chason looks solid, man. She looks like she's filled out at 145, and 135 was a struggle for her. She did not look good scale anytime she had to cut down to 135. So I think she made the right move here, moving up a weight class. Dumont, she needed that box of shame. She had her eyes closed. She was sucked out. Looked rough on the scales today, John. And one of the things I like to do is bust out my tinfoil hat whenever a fighter doesn't do well on the scales, whenever they look rough. It's one more reason for me to chase the opponent. It's one more reason for me to look at betting against them. Now, it's that last little kind of, icing on the cake for me. If I've already got an opinion going the other direction, but I can't quite get there, missing on the scales is what kind of pushes me over the edge. This is one of those weird spots where I just get that gambler's tingle on the back of my neck. Macy Chason is a plus 190 underdog. Norma Dumont minus 220 the favorite. Everything, every stat, every number points towards Norma Dumont being the winner of this fight. But Macy Chason being fresh up at 145, her opponent having a rough weight cut, the fact that Dumont does just enough to get by in every single one of her fights, it's more of a slow grinding pace. For some reason, I got an idea that I like the dog here. Haven't bet it yet, but that weight miss is making me extremely tempted, John. Have you taken anything on this fight?
No, we haven't, but you're kind of making me want to lower the price. You're a good sales Chason. We've got Dumont minus 220. Not a fight that's generating a lot of interest in the betting window yet. That'll change tomorrow. Dumont will be in a lot of parlays, and maybe she'll be the parlay buster for us if she loses to Chason. Usually, there's always one, right? There needs to be for my line of work. Hopefully, I already see like in the parlay column. Because I'm looking at two different columns, straight bets and the parlays. There's really nothing in this fight in the straight bets. But in the parlays, there's all a bunch of parlays with Dumont. And that's just going to continue for the next 24 hours, right? So we'll be rooting for Macy Chason, I'm sure, by the time the fight starts.
Bettors beware. Because, John, there is always one bed shitter. It is rare that you guys get through with all those big parlay legs coming through on MMA fights. I always warn people, with parlays, I'm doing two-leggers. You know what I mean? If I'm sprinkling on like a 6 to 8 legger that's like for, small risk, big reward, okay, go for it, have fun. But if it's for like serious money, I'm doing 2 leggers. You want to make sure you've got 2 safe legs that you trust. And I think that Dumont might be the one that craps the bed this week. Macy Chason's coming in hot. She's coming in hungry. If she doesn't gas tank issues from cutting down to 135, I think she can be more active. She's got a huge reach advantage here. I'm probably going to sprinkle. I'm talking myself into it, and I've been kind of looking at it all week, so I think I'm going to go that direction.
Well, we definitely want anybody that's doing 6, 7, and 18 parlays to go to superbook.com, Arizona, and get an account, or Tennessee, or Colorado, or New Jersey, wherever you are. We want those 18 parlays. No, seriously though, sometimes all the favorites do win, and we get crushed. It's not like that's happened. That's what really happened to us 2 weeks ago. We had all these favorites win. We had a big parlay that was going to who did Chase Sherman fight? Romanov?
Alexander Romanov.
Yeah, Alexander Romanov. Excuse me. And then we have a rule at Superbook: the fight must take place within 8 days for action. And because the fight only got postponed by 7 days, that parlay was action. So we had a huge 8-fight parlay. We knew we were going to lose. We had to wait. And we had to tell the customer, like, that's our rule. It's within 8 days for action. And it was 7 days later. And we had that just hanging over our heads for 7 days. Romanov easily wins. I want to say the guy's parlay was like 2,000 to win 88,000 or something.
Wow.
Closed with Romanov. We never had much of a chance with Chase Sherman in that fight.
That one where, I mean, you just got to be kind of bracing because for Romanov, like you said, we talked the boxing prices. Romanov was not losing that fight. Like you can make up whatever scenario you want. Other underdogs, you know, 100 minus 500 MMA favorites. Maybe they get upset. Romanov was not losing that fight.
No, he wasn't. And it was one of those cases where on this side of the counter, we actually alert our superiors to those things. We sent an email on Friday saying, this is going to happen tomorrow and we're going to lose. We did.
Well,
sorry.
You know what? I work with you guys at Superbook, so like I've got to show a little bit of compassion here, John. But I'm sure the comments are absolutely loving it. The people listening are cackling.
Your listeners don't want anyone to have any sympathy for the book. Don't have any sympathy for us. Sometimes I'll play that up on social media, but I don't actually expect anyone to feel bad for us. I don't feel bad if I take money from another sports book. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. It's an interesting relationship dynamic we've got going on here. Bettors and books. It's good stuff. All right. So I like the dog there a little bit. Moving the show along here. Next fight up, we got Francisco Trinaldo taking on Danny Hot Chocolate Roberts. Both guys make 170.5. Both guys look good on the scales. I mean, Trinaldo, the ageless wonder, dude is 44 years old. Just never seems to croak. And Danny Hot Chocolate looks in great shape. No issues on his part of things. This line has been ping-ponging all week. I've seen minus 115 on both sides of this line at one point or another throughout the week. Right now, minus 105 on Danny Roberts, minus 115 on Francisco Trinaldo. And I kind of like Danny Roberts here, but it's hard to be confident on either side here. Both guys look good. Both guys look like they're in shape. I just know one of these days Francisco is going to fall off a cliff. Like after you get through 40 in the fight game, it is extremely rare for people to have success. And I don't know if it's this fight, maybe it's his next one. Like guy's durability is starting to get chipped away. We've hurt in his last couple fights. It's going to happen. I don't know if Danny Roberts is the guy, but I think I'm picking him.
You know, really very little to report on this fight, which is kind of surprising because it's essentially a pick'em fight. You mentioned it, Trinaldo minus 115, Roberts is minus 105. Basically a pick'em toss-up fight. Usually we'll see a lot more action on fights like that. Somebody will have an opinion. That'll probably change here in the next 24 hours. But right now, Friday afternoon, nothing really to report at the Superbook on the Roberts-Trinaldo fight.
Fair enough. It is kind of interesting that one's flying under the radar. Most of these fights are a little bit wider, and people seem to have more opinions. The pick'em fights usually end up seeing kind of a tug of war, but nobody wants to really touch this one.
This is a big card. You know, there's a lot of fights on this card. I'm actually watching a Bellator event right now.
I got enough over here.
Yeah, we got a PFL tonight that we are booking in Nevada. And then obviously, you know, we've got Canelo Alvarez fighting tomorrow. That's where I'll be tomorrow night. I'll be following these fights on my phone, but I'll be at T-Mobile for the Canelo fight. So there's just a lot of things dividing people's attention this week. And so far, Danny Roberts, Francisco Trinaldo is not moving the needle for the Superbook customers.
There's a lot of other stuff to distract bettors for sure. So I don't blame this fight for flying under the radar. You forget Barnacle FC is going on too, so plenty of degenerate action.
There's a lot. It's a great weekend in the sports books though. We got
and the Derby.
Yeah, we got Churchill Downs running right now. Kentucky Oaks is this afternoon. I mean, we're jamming. It's good to see it.
John, I don't know if you ever watch any of the betting shows or anything like that, but if you check out Pub Sports Radio, my guy Jimmy the Bag is hosting a Derby day right now. They're like live betting all the tracks and stuff and talking about the Derby all day. It's a fun show, so everybody make sure you go and check that out. I don't know. Do you guys have – I know it's like totally random and off the wall here. Do you guys have like a favorite or an exposure on the Derby where if somebody wins, it's going to kind of break things, or is it pretty even?
We lose on Epicenter. Is it a big exposure? It's not. No, there's nothing we're sweating tomorrow in the Kentucky Derby. We're trying to get the Milwaukee Bucks knocked out of the NBA playoffs. That's what we're sweating. Nothing tomorrow. We just want to see some money come through the window here the next 2 days at Churchill Downs.
I hear you. It's Derby Day is fun for me, man. My family, we always used to do a Derby Day down at the track. Unfortunately, it overlaps with UFC 274, so we're skipping out this year. But I will find a way to bet a horse or two before tomorrow.
No, Dana White, I love Dana White, and I love the UFC, but I can't believe he scheduled this one the day he did. I'm sure he's smarter than me. I'm sure he's got some reason for it. But if this was pretty much any other Saturday of the year other than during football season, I would be in Phoenix myself for this. I just couldn't get off work with Kentucky Derby, and then I got tickets for Canelo. I mean, if this was any other weekend, I'd be in Phoenix. Sure, it's a great UFC event. I wish it was next week or the week after, or the week after, or the week after, or the entire summer. I don't know why they did it like this.
Man, they got to fulfill those contracts, right? This is just, I guess, what worked out. But we got some good stuff left to talk about here, man. Randy Brown taking on Chaos Williams coming up next. Brown comes in at 170.5. Chaos is 174. Randy Brown looks absolutely shredded up there, man. He is huge for this weight class. Super tall, abs for days. Chaos gave a huge flex. That dude is stone cold. All business on the scales today. And I'll be honest with you, John, this is a spot where it's hard for me to break away from my heart to get to the window with a bet because I love Chaos. Like when this guy first got signed to the UFC, I immediately bought in. I love his death touch KO power, and I've been riding that train this whole time. Now, he was kind of losing his last fight, managed to find the button and get that third round knockout. Young fighters have got to take that L and then go back to the drawing board, learn some things. It looks like he's moved out and working with Gaethje and Whitman before this fight. I'm like, that's the best move this kid could ever have made. If I was going to pick anywhere for him to go for training, it would have been that exact spot. So now he's sitting here a minus 120 favorite, even money on Randy Brown. The problem for me is Brown is taller, Brown is longer, Brown knows how to point fight. We are in the big octagon here for this big pay-per-view card. I think that the wrong guy is favored. Like, as much as I love Chaos Williams, I think Randy Brown should have been lined the favorite in this spot. Do you have any significant action or anything like that on him?
I can tell you the betting markets completely agree with you. We had Randy Brown plus 110 earlier in the week, took some money at plus 110, went to minus 105, and then saw more sharp money come in this morning, Friday morning, on Brown at minus 105. Now we're at minus 120. I like Chaos too, and anytime I hear anyone working with Trevor Whitman, I upgrade that fighter immediately. But I can tell you that as with Randy Brown this week, without a doubt, big line movement there. To go from plus 110 to minus 120, that might not sound like that much of a move, but it is. Crossing through, flipping the favorite, moving by 30 cents like that, it's a big move. And it's all because of sharp money on Randy Brown. That's
kind of what I've been waiting to hear of here, John, is that I was like, man, if Chaos touches plus money, I might have to. You know what I mean? Just because I'm riding with my guy. But this is a tough fight for him. I honestly think that the big cage favors Randy Brown, and he's going to circle out and keep this thing at range, kind of pitter-patter, point fight his way to a decision type of situation here. Because if Chaos doesn't close the range, if he doesn't land that one big bomb, I can't really see him winning minutes.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, but Chaos is working with Trevor Whitman. So upgrade him there and know that the knockout is very, very possible in this entire. Right now, we need Chaos because all these sharp bets came in on Randy Brown. Big bets came in on Randy Brown. We'll see, though. When we see all these sharp guys on Brown, we're going to try to get some action on Chaos the other way, help balance out our books.
Absolutely. Totally makes sense. I know that you guys have a delicate act that you've got to do. Now, on that, John, do you guys ever I know it's tough with MMA, but and I don't know if it applies to this exact fight specifically, but do you guys ever, I don't know, bait people like that? Like if you like the Chaos side and you put plus money on Brown because you know people are going to be playing that, do you just ever sit back and hold your cards and go, okay, now Chaos, get out there and whoop his ass?
Oh, we absolutely do that. We have one UFC MMA bettor that we respect more than anyone. He actually has not played anything on UFC 274 yet. But when he does play, we'll try to write money against his pick. You know, we don't blow up the market. We don't want to scare him away from betting with us. That wouldn't be fair to him. But we will move the market, and we will try to write money the other way and win when he wins is really what we tell our guys to do. We tell our guys we need to be winning on the side he bet. If we're not winning on the side he bet, you're not doing your job. That's what I'll tell some of our younger guys that are monitoring these fights. He hasn't played yet on 274, but if and when he does, we will absolutely do stuff exactly like what you're describing.
Interesting. See, that's cool to know. Those are the types of things that, from the other side of the counter, it's always fun to try to look out for. Sure. Next up, we got the dinosaurs. It's time for us to get to the Legends fight. Donald Cerrone taking on Joe Lauzon. We have got Joe Lauzon plus 150. Cerrone is minus 170-ish, it looks like. Both guys made 155 pounds with the half-pound allowance, 155.5. Donald Cerrone looks skinny up there, let me tell you, John. Like, he is talked about this weight cut is bad for him. It's hard for him. It's not something he's ever enjoyed. He moved up to 170 for a long time because of it, and he did not look great on the scales this morning. Now, he brought his kid up on stage, had a good, warm, heartfelt moment. He didn't look quite as bad as I expected him to, but he looks like he's lost a lot of muscle mass. Joe Lauzon on the other side, he looked good. He looks like he's been working out. He looks like he added muscle mass. It's been a long time. Joe's coming off a long layoff here for this one, coming back for his retirement fight. And honestly, I'm having a tough time picking a side. Joe Lauzon's going to go for broke. He's going to blitz this guy and try and get him out of there in round one. So I think that there is some upside on the dog here. But if he doesn't quite get Cerrone out of there in the first 2 minutes of the fight, Cerrone's going to whoop his ass. So I actually under 2.5. I got minus 155 on the under 2.5. I'm just rooting for violence. I'm kind of going to lean on the Joe Lauzon catching him early side, but I can absolutely see a world where Donald Cerrone gets through that and TKOs him in the second.
It's really sharp money on the under in this fight. We've moved this price quite a bit. We had under 2.5 even earlier in the week, and right now we're away at under 2.5 minus 175. So there's definitely some really sharp money there. Bets like that are usually, we keep those limits a little lower. Round prop of a UFC fight, we're not going to take as much because that market's pretty volatile, and that's why you've seen that price move by 75 cents. As far as the side itself, less action than I would have thought. Donald Cerrone at one time was as popular as just about anybody in the UFC outside of maybe Conor and Ronda Rousey. And we're just not seeing a whole lot of action. No one wants to back Cowboy. Probably still scared and just we don't know what to think of Donald Cerrone at this point in his career.
He's looked pretty bad in his last couple fights. Taking some rough losses. Granted, it's been to some pretty reputable guys. And I think another thing that has to do with it, John, is the comments that he's been making. Coming out, doing the interviews, being honest about not wanting to take the Conor fight and knowing he was going to lose the second he stepped in the cage. Those are tough comments to hear when you're looking at putting your money on a guy in a fist fight.
Well, he sure looked like a guy that didn't want to be there. That's for sure. I mean, that whole thing was pretty interesting. There are a lot of people that think he won against Pettis, that fight in Florida when they did the bubble. I don't know. I thought Pettis won that fight, but I've always been a big fan of Donald. So yeah, of course it sucks to see these guys at the end of their careers.
Yeah, that's the hurt business for you, John. We become fans, and then you got to see them get old, unfortunately.
Absolutely, unless they're George St. Pierre, this is usually how it goes.
Hey, George and Khabib, they did it right, man. They took gold and they got out. We never had to see that fall.
Yeah, true. Well, Khabib, you never know. We'll see. I know he says he's retired, and I do believe him, but he's still a young man, and he still would be favored against anybody and everybody.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, man, he promised his mama. I don't think we're seeing Khabib again.
He's one of the few guys I actually believed him when he retired. Everyone else.
Me too.
I believe him. I hope he can.
Everybody else.
I'd love to be wrong. I'd love to book another Khabib fight. It'd be great for business.
I'm sure. And he does numbers. He's good for this sport. If Khabib ever came out of retirement, even if it was just for one more or something like that, that'd be good for all of us.
Absolutely.
All right. Next up, continuing the dinosaur trend, St. Preux taking on Mauricio Shogun Hua. OSP made 205 on the dot. He did require the box of shame to do so, which I felt a little bit interesting because he could have hit 205.5. Mauricio 205.5, and honestly looked a little bit rough. He's another one of these guys that was a former champion, a legend of the sport, been doing it forever. So I don't know if I can really look into him being a bit overweight, a bit scruffy. He's going to kind of look like that at this stage of his career. So I don't want to be too harsh on his physical appearance on the scale. after they called the weight, he did show off a big smile and flex for us. So I think he's okay. This is one of those ones where even if you get a bad picture, a bad angle of him on the scales, I don't know that he's had that bad of a cut. That just might be the way the guy looks at this point. Mauricio Shogun Rua is a plus 200 underdog. OSP, the minus 240 favorite. That just makes me throw up in my mouth a little bit, John. Like OSP at minus 240 is like, this is a guy who I love to be on the other side of. Another guy who likes to take his ball and go home. He gets tired in the second round. If he hasn't finished you or put you in a bad spot in the first, he's just done in round 2. The problem is we've got old and busted Rua at this point, who I don't know if he can make it to round 2 himself. In the Paul Craig fight, that was the big deal. He won round 1. He reversed Paul Craig. He got on top of Paul Craig. He looked like he was in control of the fight. And then he was just out of gas in that second round. So this is a fight where I'm trying to talk myself into Rua. I'm trying to talk myself into Rua by KO. But, man, I just don't know that I can get there.
I don't know how this fight ends up on the one that we both agree is one of the best pay-per-views of the year. I don't have much interest in this fight. There's not a whole lot to say at the window. I guess the answer is it's because it's Shogun Rua, right? That's why it's on pay-per-view at a huge event. But right now you're seeing OSP thrown into parlays, and that's about it. And that, yeah, I agree with you. That would make me nervous.
You got to be loving that.
Yeah, sometimes, sometimes maybe don't go to that 5 or 6 team parlay. Just cut it down by a leg and leave OSP on the cutting room floor. I know Shogun is shot basically at this point in his career, but this doesn't feel like the kind of fight you'd want to lay that big price on me. Right now, very quiet betting on that fight. Nothing like the last 3 fights.
Absolutely. This is, again, for me, for the better side of things, this is the bed shitter alarm going off. That I'm like, OSP is the guy you don't want tied into your massive parlays. Shogun still has that pop in his punches, man. And even though he's old, even though he's withered and the gas tank is bad, it might be better than OSP's gas tank. So, yikes. Yeah, this is one I haven't bet it yet. It's a dog or pass spot for me. But like I said, on the scales, usually that'll tip my opinion. That'll give me that last little push I need to get to the window. Can't do it. Because OSP, even though he needed the box of shame, he looked better physically than Rua did. So, I don't know. I'm probably passing on that one. That'll be the walkout beer money fight for me where I throw $20 on Rua by knockout.
That's a big stay away from me. Like I said, I'll be at T-Mobile on Saturday for the Canelo fight, and I'll be tracking these other fights on my phone. But I think maybe I'll be waiting in line to get a beer during this fight because I don't really care too much about this.
John, we call those fireball and popcorn fights. You get up, you get a drink, you get a snack. Those are the fights that you can step away for a second from if you need to.
This one wouldn't mean too much to me.
I hear you. All right, we're getting to the good stuff here, though. Michael Chandler taking on Tony Ferguson. Chandler is 146, Ferguson 155.5. Chandler almost fell off the scales today, but it was hilarious. It was not because he was anyway, disheveled from his weigh-in or anything like that. It was pretty hilarious. This guy jacked. Like, there is nobody built like Michael Chandler. Gave a huge flex on the scales today. Tony Ferguson, though, I about died, John. I tweeted this out earlier. He was like messing with the guy doing the weight, literally like bouncing on the scale to make the thing like mess up on it. Pretty hilarious. But he's in the best shape I have ever seen him in. Tony Ferguson came correct for this fight. And I have a taste of that over 1.5. I don't think he's as shot as people say he is. I think if anything else, he'll just be able to take whatever chance to offer and drag this fight a little bit deeper. So I like that over 1.5 spot. And I bet Tony Ferguson, John. I got plus 320 a little earlier in the week. I think this line has gotten out of control. Chandler opened up around minus 155 or so. And now I'm getting over plus 300 on the underdog. I got to go. That's a spot I took.
Well, we mentioned that Cowboy Pettis fight in Florida. Well, the main event of that card, I'm sure you remember, was Gaethje Ferguson. And Ferguson was a pretty big favorite in that fight. Gaethje beats him, and then I think after that, Ferguson lost to Dumont later that same year, I believe. But not exactly a great shame if those two guys that are in the main event are the guys that beat you that supposedly has you so shot. I think
it was a control game, John. Like, he just stayed one step ahead of him on top. Like, he was able to out-scramble Tony in the jiu-jitsu, which is somebody almost nobody can do. It wasn't it was a dominant performance. It was obvious who won. Tony was never in any danger. It was simply holding him down.
Oh, I agree. And I agree with everything you said. The price seems very high. Could be some value on Ferguson, but we're still seeing these big bets come in on Michael Chandler while we were recording. We had a guy lay Chandler minus 340 to win 4,000. He bet 13,600 on that. So there's still big money coming in on Michael Chandler as we speak. We're gonna need Ferguson. I tend to agree with you though. If you want to take a shot on a big dog, I think Tony Ferguson's probably right against Michael Chandler. But Chandler's a guy just had the fight of the decade against Justin Gaethje, and he was favored against Oliveira in some circles in their title fight. A lot of people were surprised there. So Chandler's just had some really tough matchups since he joined the UFC. He's been just fighting a murderer's row of guys.
I wonder about that, though, John, because he has been fighting a murderer's row, and he hasn't done so hot, and he just went through an absolute beating with Justin Gaethje a couple months ago. Like, I like to target fighters that I feel like are accumulating damage, and I know Tony's not the biggest hitter out there in the world, but coming off a Justin Gaethje fight, I think you probably should give yourself 9 to 12 months to recover from that. Hopping back in, 4 or 5 months down the road, got to wonder if his durability is all there. I mean, I know I'm kind of pulling draws here, but that's one of those types that I like to take a look at and see if I can get advantage over somebody who really should have taken a bit more of a break.
I don't think that's crazy. It's not like he got knocked out with one fluke punch early in the first round, right? And just that's the end of it. He took a pretty big beating for 15 minutes.
Battered.
And prior to that, we mentioned he had the fight against Dumont. So he's had a tough road in the UFC since that knockout over Dan Hooker. I guess that was 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago. He's had some tough fights since then.
All right. Well, I like it. To us, I guess, John, we're on the same side on that one. We'll collect all those big paydays from the people laying the chalk. Co-main event time. Rose Namajunas taking on Carla Esparza. Both women coming in at 115 on the dot. Namajunas first on the scales, looking stone cold up there, John. She was a little sucked out. I mean, what can you expect? It's weight cut day. She didn't look that bad. Absolutely determined, the intensity from Rose Namajunas. Carla Esparza, big smile, gave her a little flex. No issues from her. She doesn't ever have a problem making weight or anything like that. This is the spot that I've been going back and forth on all week, John. I can't make up my mind. On Monday, on my podcast day, I talked about Rose, and I talked about how she is officially, in my opinion, the greatest of all time at this weight class for the women's division. Like, she has beaten everybody, and the top two contenders, she has KO'd them both in the first round. Like, there is no debate for me here. It's a rematch where she is much younger than her opponent. We've seen massive jumps up in her skill and her ability, but Carla is maybe the scissors to her paper. Like, she could just be the wrong stylistic matchup for her. I feel like Rose Namajunas is the side, but I know a lot of smart people who I greatly respect who are taking the dog shot on Carla Esparza. What can you tell me on this one?
Well, we had a really respected player take Carla at 2-1 this morning, and I might have to just limit myself from the conversation on this fight because I love Rose. She's probably my favorite fighter in the UFC. I'm a huge fan of hers. I don't understand why she's only minus 220 in this fight. I was at their first fight 8 years ago. I think it was at the Pearl, and I was surprised then when she lost. But Rose was just a baby then. Yep. And think of who she's fought since that first fight between these two women. I think of Rose being in a much higher class than Carla Esparza. No disrespect to Carla Esparza. She's had a great career. But I would never put her up there with Rose and some of the other great women at this weight class. I was a little surprised that Carla got the title fight. I'm a little surprised that she's only plus 190. And I've been surprised to see all these sharp guys on Carla. So clearly there's something I'm missing about this fight. Because to me, Rose is at another level than Carla Esparza. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm disrespecting Carla Esparza. Because I feel that way about Rose Namajunas and almost every female fighter in the UFC. I don't think hardly any of them are at Rose Namajunas' level. I think she's that great.
I completely agree with you, John, and that's the scary part for me is I'm in the same spot as you going, what am I missing? Like, what am I not seeing right now? Because everybody is just piling in, lining up on the underdog. I guess the one thing that I can say, for me personally, like I said, I tend to try to be a little bit more of a contrarian bettor. Not always successful at it. I try to get in early, and then I find out that I'm on a very public underdog come, fight day. So I've been kind of sitting back and watching this one, and I guess with all the love coming in on Carla Esparza, I'm seeing nothing but people on Twitter betting Carla Esparza. Rose has gone from a minus 170 favorite to about minus 225 market wide. That's the kind of thing to me. That big
Rose is in every parlay. Rose, let's get that clear though. Rose is in every parlay. We've got more tickets for Rose than any fighter at UFC 274 when you factor in the parlays, not straight bets. But she's being tossed into every parlay. What you're going to get here tomorrow is parlays of Rose, Chandler, Canelo Alvarez in the boxing main event. And Rose, so Rose right now, we do have some liability on her. I don't know why everyone else is moving up because our sharp bets are coming in on the dog here. But that's because we told our guys to position Rose's price a little high because of everything I just said. I think Rose is at a completely different level than Carla. So I expected those straight bets from the sharp guys to come in on Carla because we were offering a better price on Carla than everyone else. You don't want to read too much into something like that. That's what we were looking for. So famous egg on my face if Rose does lose tomorrow. But I just don't see it. I don't see it. I've been wrong many times. It wouldn't be that big of a surprise, but I'll certainly be tuning in for this fight, expecting Rose to win.
I almost wanted to pull out my wallet and put the hammer on Rose, man. I expected to see a minus 350. I expected to see a minus 400. I was surprised and have been all week that she's just minus 200, minus 210.
That's exactly what I said, actually, to one of the guys at work yesterday. Was I if you had just blindly asked me, and I'm usually pretty accurate on these, I would have thought Rose would be like minus $4 because I just think she's at another level. So maybe Carla will make me eat my words, the Cookie Monster. She'll make me eat my words twice in the same matchup. She did it 8 years ago. We'll see. I don't see it happening, but I've been wrong. Like I said, I've been wrong many times.
I hear you. I'm right there with you. Haven't made a bet yet for anybody listening, but again, I can't get off of Rose. I've had a bunch of people try to sway me over to the Carla Esparza side of things, and even after running it back and taking a look and trying to talk myself, I still just can't get there. I still think I'm on Rose. I might end up not betting though. I might end up passing.
That's bad advice. You can't be at UFC 274 and not have a bet on the co-main event. I don't believe
right.
That. That's no way.
What I'm saying.
No.
That's what I'm saying. I don't have a bet on the main event yet, John. I know I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna absolutely have to.
You will by the time we get to those fights. The liquor will be flowing, the juice is flowing. I've been there many times, man. I get it. You'll have a bet on both those fights. They're both
by the time the video uploads, people will be listening to this and going, I just saw Clint tweet his pick. I'll be on it before the end of the day.
You can't go to a fight of this magnitude and have no action on it. No chance.
Right. Absolutely not. All right, man. It's time. Main event time. We already talked about it a little bit at the top of the show. Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje. The big news, Charles Oliveira no longer your UFC lightweight champion. He came in at 155 and a half. And it was interesting because he got up there. He's looking confused that they're not immediately reading out his weights. They pull out the box of shame. He misses by a half pound. He's got an hour to cut. So the man goes back. It's another 30, 35 minutes or so later. He comes back out. He weighs in again, 155. There's no sweat on his face, John. The man has nothing left to offer. Per the rules of the UFC, you got to be on the dot to be able to challenge for that title. So Charles Oliveira has been stripped of the belt. Come Saturday, when these guys fight, if Justin Gaethje wins, he's the UFC lightweight champion. If Charles Oliveira wins, there is a vacant title situation paving the way for Conor McGregor to come back and get an immediate title shot.
if Conor can get to 155, I don't know. Conor looks pretty jacked on social media these days. I'm not sure.
Usman.
Yeah, I don't know about. I don't think Conor wants any part of Usman. That would be
He says he does. He doesn't.
No, that would be. I don't think that's a good idea for several reasons. But yeah, it's been shocking. I mean, we had Gaethje plus 150 when I got to work this morning. We're all the way down to plus 125.
Don't tell me that.
We initially bumped it by 10 cents at the top of the show. right after the weight cuts, obviously, and then we've lowered it by another 15 cents while we've been recording because the money's been coming in on Gaethje. The market's been going down. Bad, obviously, a missed weight cut for Charles Oliveira, just absolutely shocking. I don't know that I can recall ever a more shocking missed weight than this one. I don't know off the top of my head. Maybe what was it going to be? Dillashaw against who was Dillashaw fighting where they missed weight and Joe Soto had to go in there and fight instead? Do you remember that fight? Like
that was a long time ago.
Years ago. I can't even remember who he was supposed to fight. But
yeah, I don't recall.
Dominic Cruz. No, it couldn't have been Cruz, but I don't know. I just remember that when they had to scrap the main event and Joe Soto had to go in, got demolished by TJ.
Crazy times.
This is the most shocking weight cut I can remember since then. It was never shocking when the Habib-Ferguson fights got scrapped, especially if I had tickets for them. I just assumed that something bad was going to happen, and it always did. This one didn't see this coming at all.
Yeah. Nobody saw this whatsoever coming down the pipe. And honestly, John, it sucks that we are doing this show. I'm very grateful to you for your time and all the inside information. But I'm a little upset because I was going to bet Justin Gaethje, especially after seeing the weight miss. I was going to jump in all over that, and I'm sad to hear that I'm missing out on that number because I could have got plus 150 right after it happened.
Pause. You could have asked me to pause. I don't care.
Yeah. No, that's on me.
I could have waited. I would have.
No,
I used to do a show with this Kelly in Vegas character where half the show she'd be betting on her phone to the point where I'd be like, do you want me to just stop the show? Do you want to just do this instead? That wouldn't have fazed me at all.
That's true. I guess Kelly's set precedent. That was, that was probably one of my favorite parts of the show. Anytime you would rip on Kelly for not paying attention or for trying to get the action in while you were talking instead of doing the podcast.
I used to think she was being disrespectful, but then one time she invited me to go down to Caesars, and I hung out with her while she was doing like pre-show work for the show she did with, I think, Bleacher Report. And she wasn't paying any attention to them either. They had all these producers, and so one of the kids had like typed up a rundown of everything, and she's like ordering me a beer and just sitting there. So that's just her method. It wasn't disrespectful, and she does a great job on the air. So I mean, whatever, it works for her, I guess.
The life of a content creator. I absolutely love it, man. I'm a massive fan of Kelly, so that's funny to hear that she's that way all the time. Good stuff.
All the time, But for this fight, I don't know how we ended up on Kelly. I'll take the for this fight. Great two-way action. Tickets are really even. You're going to see a lot of people come in on Gaethje now because everyone's going to be talking about this missed weight cut. But the fact that the Dubronx can't win the belt tomorrow, that won't have any impact on betting him. The bettors don't really care about that. That's not something that's really important. I don't think that they're going to care too much that a belt's on the line. But I do expect us to need Dubronx by the time the fight starts because that's going to be the big narrative now for the next 30 hours or so. And you're going to get a lot of people come in on Gaethje at what was already an inviting plus. Gaethje, who has he lost to in the UFC since the Poirier fight? Is it just Khabib? Is that the only person that beat him? Well, there's no shame in that. There's no shame. I mean, you can just throw that out the window because everybody gets their butt kicked by him.
Exactly.
So Gaethje is fighting at an extraordinarily high level. He's got an opponent that just missed weight, and he's a nice plus. That's going to be a very popular side tomorrow.
This is another fight, John, that I've been kind of staying away from basically the entire week because I've been ping-ponging. I have a bad track record because I'm the guy spinning the narrative that you're talking about. I'm the guy who has been against Charles Oliveira basically his entire run that he's been on because back when he was young, he would kind of fold a little bit. He would get tired and look for the door and get out of there.
Was it the Pettis fight? Was that the one? Because I feel like I one time had a bet on him and he was doing great and then just a little bit of adversity and he just tapped out. I want to say it was against Anthony Pettis and I was so annoyed with him.
Round 3, guillotine. He stuck his neck right out there.
But since then, or maybe not since then, but in the last couple of years, he's just been on a mission. I remember we took very sharp bets on Oliveira against Tony Ferguson, who also features at 274, and that really surprised me. And then he went out there and just ran through him. So there's been a lot of sharp guys coming in on Dubronx his last few fights. But Gaethje's been fighting the best of the best. I mean, I don't know. This is probably the best UFC fight of the year. I think this. I don't know that there's a better matchup this whole year. I'm very disappointed to see Oliveira miss weight. Even more disappointed that Dana did it up against Canelo on Derby Saturday and screwed me out of being there with you tomorrow night. Great matchup, and I expect a lot of action on it at the Superbook.
It's awesome, John. This is going to be a ton of fun. I'm probably going to sign up on that Justin Gaethje side of things just because, I know Dubroc's got it done against Dustin Poirier, but we've kind of seen him give up back and tap to that scene before. Talked about the Trevor Whitman situation and the training he's got going there. Justin seems to understand the assignment. His wrestling's good at space. If he can keep himself off the cage, that's how Charles really ends up getting most of his takedowns. So I think he can kind of outwork him on the feet, outmove him. And these are the kind of weight cuts that I think are the most damaging for fighters, is when their body's got nothing left to give, but they got to keep on draining. They're not rehydrating yet. They're not on schedule yet, but they got to keep on trying to make that weight, that extra 30 minutes. That's something Justin Gaethje was already enjoying, some water and a plate of pasta while he was out there trying to get that last half pound off. So, yeah, I kind of think I'm probably going to jump in feet first here on the Gaethje side. Like you said, the alcohol is going to be flowing. I'm going to need something to sweat here for the main event.
You got to do that, man. And you get to Superbook Sports, too. We got our guys. They're going to be putting up all sorts of odds boosts for UFC 274. I got to go take a look at these Gaethje odds boosts. Make sure they don't go too crazy here. We might have to make some adjustments there. We are trying to run a business here at the Superbook. But I can't wait for this. I mean, 155 is the best weight class in the sport. And these guys are peak of their power. Well, maybe Oliveira's not. He was a day ago. But I thought these guys were peak of their powers coming in. I can't wait to watch this fight. I can't wait to watch my girl Rose. And then Ferguson Chandler's a great fight, too. I agree with you. I think the price is too high as well, but I don't want to disrespect Michael Chandler, because Michael Chandler's a guy, with a big win tomorrow, maybe he jumps in to that title shot if Conor's got bigger designs on getting his ass kicked by Kamaru Usman, for instance, which I think is a terrible idea.
That's awful.
But I think it's a terrible idea. But if you want to do that, maybe Chandler gets you
Set the line -600, put +400 on Conor McGregor, and laugh your way to the bank, man, because they'll be lining up to take it.
Oh, they would. They would. Well, the fight that I'm really hoping that they're going to make, I know it's the big rumor out there, is the Hamzat Diaz fight.
Yes.
UFC 276. I will be at that one. That one is here in Los Angeles. I'm hoping they make that fight. And I know how the betting will go in that fight. Hamzat won't be favored by as much as he should be because everybody will bet on Diaz, and I think we both know what's going to happen if they do fight each other. But it'd be great for the sport because Nate Diaz is awesome. He always brings the action. He brings a great fan base with him anytime he fights. I'd love to see it. I'm really hoping we get that one. If they give us that one, plus Holloway Volkanovski, that'll be a very fun night. That'll be the only card that could rival what we're going to have tomorrow night in Phoenix.
That'll be one hell of an event. John, thank you so much for joining me, man. The guy himself from Superbook Sports. Hey, anybody watching this, I am going to be hanging out doing the event for Superbook Sports at the Ainsworth for the preliminary portion of the card. So come hang out, come downtown to Phoenix, meet me, meet the people behind Superbook Sports. We've got the watch party going on there at the Ainsworth, and we're looking forward to meeting some of you guys. John, is there anything that you want to shout out? Do you have any other shows or anything going on that people should look out for?
No, I'm just jealous. I was at the Ainsworth before the WVU bowl game. I guess you could call that played a bowl game against Minnesota, although the team didn't really show up for it. But I was there, and we were talking about going to a UFC fight and then going to the Ainsworth for a watch party, and then they scheduled it on the worst possible day for me. But hopefully I'll be able to come out to the Ainsworth maybe for a D-backs game this summer because I do want to make an appearance in Arizona. I loved my time there, in spite of whatever the hell that was from West Virginia in that loss to the Golden Gophers. But I do want to go to the Ainsworth. People should definitely check us out. The fair pricing at the Superbook is what sets it apart from a lot of these books. If you're betting that Gaethje Oliveira fight at a 30-cent split with your sports book, you've already lost. And you should be taking your business to a place like the Superbook or one of the other ones that has fairer, tighter splits on these fights. You've got to give yourself every advantage as a bettor. You should make sure you have a couple of accounts so you can always get the best price. But the ones with a 20-cent split as the common split is where you want to start.
Well said. Thank you, John. And one other reason to like Superbook, we're giving away tickets. If you want to win tickets to UFC 274, like I said, I'll be at Ainsworth. See you guys there. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Good luck on all your degenerate action tomorrow at UFC 274. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.